Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. We have Adam back with us again this week. We've got our main man, Gareth, very smug Eagles fan on as well. A heartbroken Steeler here. A heartbroken Adam with the Packers result. We were going to have Byron on as well, who's a Bills fan. It'd have been too much. It'd have been 2 against 2. It could have been crazy. And it's already gone crazy. We should have started this show half an hour because the NFL is popping off. It is trade deadline day. Over in the States, it's like, midday in some places. They're just waking up in some places. It's been a crazy few days. We thought the Christian McCaffrey trade was mental. Today, we've had Roquan Smith traded to the Baltimore Ravens. We've had TJ Hawkinson going from the Lions to the Vikings. In the last half an hour, we've had Chase Claypool from the Steelers going to the Bears. We've had the Steelers then trading for Willie Jackson. And then the big one that has just happened, which is Bradley Chubb has been traded from the Denver Broncos to the Miami Dolphins. More details on everything coming up with that. Chase Edmonds going the other way. We're going to break some of these down. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to have some crazy trades happen whilst we're live on air, which we'll go through. I mean, Adam, we might as well start at the top of this. Roquan Smith, I mean, it was yesterday. That's the first big trade that sort of happened with the ball rolling, I suppose. A huge trade for a 25-year-old middle linebacker. Clearly was very upset at the Bears losing his friends like Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks. Who else was it? Someone else went and he didn't like it.
Robert Quinn.
He didn't
to the Eagles,
which he didn't like. And now he's gone over to the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, as a Steelers fan, I hate the trade. Dead annoying. 25-year-old middle linebacker who's going to be paired up with Patrick Queen over there. Probably going to cause a load of grief for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers going forward in the division. I mean, firstly, how do you see that trade and how business went down there?
To me, I think it was, at first, I feel like it's an odd trade for the Bears to do. But at the same time, I think when you look back at, further away from it, you do sort of think to yourself, he is in the prime of his career, but they're going to have to pay him soon, and they're going to have to pay him a lot because he is just that good. I think he's ranked second or something when it comes to the amount of tackles this season at that position, and
which actually really is not a good stat. Really,
I mean,
if you're a good defense, you shouldn't be making many tackles.
No, but he does it well. So
many tackles, at least he does it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think because of that, you can Chicago's a weird one. I don't quite know what they're playing at the moment. I feel like they've done everything round the wrong way. They brought in the franchise quarterback and then have set about dismantling that team afterwards, which you normally do before, and then sort of rally round the quarterback. So I find that a little bit odd, but I think they've probably looked at it and they've thought, we can't do anything this year. We're not going to do anything for a couple of years probably. Let's sell off our best assets, which is what they did when they got rid of Mack and Quinn and now him as well. And so I think that's probably what their logic is. And then in about 3 years' time, they're probably hoping to be relevant.
And don't you think it's strange, Gareth, that when people do that, like the traded away Mac, the traded away Quinn, the traded away Roquan Smith, they're gaining picks. They're clearly wanting to start again and build. But then just half an hour ago, you spent a second-round pick on Chase Claypool from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, my opinion will come into a moment with that, but it does seem like this franchise is going any which way about this.
It is, but at the same point, you need to look at their wide receiver room. It is a mess. Like their whole wide receiver room before this trade was getting paid less than most teams' starting wide receiver. They did need a good, safe pair of hands because at the end of the day, they've got this young quarterback. They've spent a lot of picks and draft capital to, in effect, get, and you kind of need to give him something to work with. And Claypool could be that guy. For the Steelers, I think it's a bit of an interesting one because, to be fair, second-round pick, I think was quite good for them. I think that end of the day, it's where they got him in the first place. I know, obviously, you're a bit bitter because there's another player you would have preferred taking in that slot who's having a good season this year. But for them, it literally, I think the Steelers know they're not going to do anything, so they might as well get a bit of draft capital for next year and try and tool up again and only have 1 year blip as opposed to a Bears length blip or teams of that ilk. I think the problem they have is they keep doing this. They keep doing this over and over again, and they expect a different result every time. And we do see time and time again from them the same outcome.
Who, the Bears or the Steelers?
Bears. You see it over and over again with the Bears.
Yeah.
But how often have they tried to retool up and pour draft capital and then they just waste it? And you do. The only team I think worse at drafting than them seems to be the Raiders half the time with their success or unsuccessful draft picks.
Yeah, I don't think there's many teams out there that draft worse than the Raiders really in the last few years. From my perspective, I think you're very right. I've always said I wanted Jalen Hurts over Chase Claypool. That's why I wanted in the draft. Now, would we have seen the same success with Jalen Hurts' experience at the Eagles, but at the Steelers? Maybe so. I think it's the same sort of team in the aspect of good defense, good wide receivers. I don't think the Eagles' offensive line is just way better and far superior compared to the Steelers. But for me, like I said, I was immediately, as soon as that came through, I was going to put in our group chat, if it's for a second, completely fine with that trade. That's more than fine by me. And as soon as I went to type it, popped up when Chase Claypool gone for a second. And that's fine for business for me. Steelers have done, we may have not done loads of great things over the last few years, but we can draft wide receivers. We're very good at drafting skill position players, whether it be tight end and Pat Fryman of the wide receivers we've got in the lower rounds, like Deontay Johnson. I mean, Antonio Brown once, Emmanuel Sanders once upon a time, like these guys who we can get from low rounds. We've done it with George Pickens this year, taking him in the second. And okay, there's been frustration from his part, and I think he's got a bit of maturing to do, and definitely some stepping up to the NFL level to do. But there is some explosive plays that he has in there, and some really good hands as well. We've still kept Deontay Johnson, who's a very good wide receiver. I don't mind that at all. I think when we got him, it was big player, big strong guy, can get down the field, got the speed. I think he's had real flashes of that, but never really. Well,
against us, a prime example. When when its first year, was it last year actually? The 4 touchdown receptions he got against us. But that's been my problem with him. Is he'll have games like that, and you're like, wow, we've got a monster here, but it's never been on a consistent level. No. And then again, another trade that the Steelers made, which is one that I've been crying out for. That I said it during the off season. I said during the draft. I said during the middle bit as well. Is corner. We've got Willie Jackson, who was very vocal about saying he wanted to leave the Commanders. Adam, I think usually when players are vocal, I always think, why would anyone then draft them? Because they're either going to force themselves out or try and get released. Therefore, you can just pick them up anyway, and maybe for cheaper, I suppose. It's not clear. It hasn't come out just yet. I don't believe, when I'm just flicking through my phone now, apologies for looking down, what we have traded for him. But do you think we'll see his aspect that some, again, especially against, with the game against the Eagles, which was clearly our weakness in that second game?
Yeah, it was a definite need, wasn't it, for the Steelers? I mean, it was ridiculous how, Jalen Hurts would sort of just get the ball on Sunday, and it was kind of just like over the top, and that was it. It was, and the throws, they were very good throws, but they were kind of like arcing throws. So it was like he was making sure it was going over the top, and them corners just couldn't deal with it at all. So I think it is a desperate need. Who wants to stay at the Commanders anyway? Really, it's like it's such a mess. It's one of them, isn't it? Where they obviously it's not really a massive shocker, and they're not going to do anything like this season. Really, they're in a division where they're certainly not going to win it. So I can understand it. The only thing I would say, and this is, I get that you've traded one away, brought one in. Do you actually, because a lot of a lot of the time people come out and say that it's not a good sign when you start trading players away, like you become a selling team and all that sort of thing. It's almost like, I mean, does it show a bad sign of what's going on at the Steelers, or is it more just the fact that they need to, move their assets around, and that in reality they had too many receivers and not enough corners, and that's why it's happened?
I think, in all honesty, you're right in the sense of if you are moving around too much, then there's clearly something up and you're wanting some. It's just like fantasy football, I suppose. When you're trying to trade all your players and everything like that, it's always like, well, why does he want to trade players? But you sometimes just need that complete change up. But NFL franchises don't work like that, do they? That's not going to, especially mid-season, that's not going to happen. I don't think Steelers are particularly a team who are infamous for lots of trades or anything like that, and not okay, maybe players do sort of come in and out, but it's definitely always been like a bit of a core with the Steelers. I mean, going back to a few years ago, Roethlisberger, Pouncey at centre, Villanueva at left tackle. Okay, there was movement with the running back when we brought in Le'Veon Bell and players like that, and then Antonio Brown. There was movement of them wide receivers, and then Cam Hayward. His name's Stephon Tuitt, Joe Hayden. We had them sort of key pieces in the right places for quite a while, and I think what we do is we do make trades that maybe are a bit eyebrow raising, like the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. At the time, people thought we gave a bit too much away. Now, okay, again, Eagles game got completely burnt, but how many times have we said that Minkah's sort of kept us in games? I know TJ Watt has as well, but it's been definitely them two on the defense as well as Cam Hayward. I think it is just a case of the Steelers draft wide receivers really well. We don't necessarily, I don't think Claypool was necessarily proved to be the player that was expected when we drafted him. And clearly we need corner. And Eagles game highlighted that even more. And not just the Eagles game, the Bills game highlighted it. Most games this season have highlighted it. We can't just rely on Minkah to be that blanket coverage guy. And when we got Joe Hayden in all them years ago, I was happy, but I was very aware that he's on the back end here. Like, we need the next sort of guys to come up. And then we got rid of people like Mike Hilton, which I hated at the time. Got people like Cam Sutton as well. Steve Nelson, tell a lie. So yeah, it's I think it's just about movement and stuff like this. Sorry, I apologize for I do put my head down and stuff like that. Notifications come from immediately. I need to see.
No.
Unfortunately, this was just all it was Tyreek Hill saying, "Am I reading this right?" And Adam Schefter saying yes. So clearly, the Dolphins. He's a very happy man getting Bradley Chubb over there, which I suppose Gareth, we should then now move on to. Bradley Chubb, the official trade for him, if I can just get the right tweet up, is Miami receiving the first round pick, which was San Francisco's, which at the minute, if I can get the correct page up very quickly, is I'm not going to get there, do this quick enough. It's the 20th pick at the minute.
And that's going to rise, I think. That's going to rise.
I think that rises too. And then they also got a fourth running back, Chase Edmonds, and then the Denver Broncos got a fourth in 2024, and then Denver got Miami got Bradley Chubb and a 2025 fifth, so an irrelevant pick. But what are your thoughts on this trade? A player that has been rumored. I mean, Denver have been rumored to be trading everyone. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, we can go talk about him maybe later on a little bit. We talked about trades last week, but I think it's still very relevant given it's the deadline day. Thoughts on this move for the Miami Dolphins?
From my point of view, I think, to be fair, smart move. I think he's a player that is going to come into any team and make them better defensively. Obviously, he's a player that I wish that the rumours were we will get in for him, but I think you probably find the pick that they went for, with the first being a bit out of Roseman's price range. He likes to give away not firsts where possible. So I do think smart move. To say, as mentioned, I think the running back situation in Denver just got a little bit more complicated by adding their 98th running back on the books, or however many they've got now, as Adam said earlier. Miami also know that this year there is a chance to do well. They've demonstrated that as the game that you went to, Fred, when you went to see them versus the Bills. They outplayed the Bills for periods. So they know there's a good chance of doing well this year. So adding a piece like that can change a team around. Look at the Rams last year adding Von Miller. How much different was that defense when they added Von Miller to that defense?
You make a really good point with that, actually. That is the sort of similar move in a way, only for a younger Von Miller, I suppose.
And ironically, what club he's come from as well. So, like, the fact that they've brought a player like that in who can change it, and then it just makes it everything easier for the rest of the D-line. Look how much better. I know, obviously, Aaron Donald was the star last year anyway, but how much better was he when Von Miller was there? But also how much freer was Von Miller when he wasn't getting double teamed because everyone was double teaming Donald. It just basically adding someone like that to your defense just basically makes the rest of your defense a lot better.
A really interesting tweets just come through. Sorry, Adam, to interrupt, but it's just food for thought. The Dolphins got 3 first-rounders back when they traded to the 49ers so the 49ers could go get Trey Lance. And Miami have traded all 3 picks. They traded 1 pick in the package to go get Jalen Waddle. They sent the next in 2022. They sent it to the Chiefs for Tyreek Hill, and then this one they've then sent to the Broncos for Bradley Chubb. But that's via Albert Breer. That tweet's just come out. Sorry to interrupt, Adam. But your thoughts on it?
No, the only thing I was going to say is, do we feel that it's really going to make take them over the top? Because if you're going to make this trade along with the Tyreek Hill trade and moving up for Waddle, not so much Waddle, but certainly the other 2, you feel like these are sort of trades that you should be doing, which then means that you're winning the division and you're winning, this is what you should be doing. And maybe they feel like they have to do this sort of thing, and this is what, they brought all the picks together and it's been done on purpose to try and compete with the Bills. But I just don't see how it gets them, because I feel like if you're going to do this sort of thing, you're kind of almost putting yourself into a position where maybe not winning the whole thing outright, but you certainly need to be looking at like an AFC Championship game, don't you? If you start doing these sort of things, it's like, and I don't see it with that team.
My argument is that I think Garrett's onto a little bit of something there. Von Miller coming in and freeing up the other guys. Well, Jaden Phillips has played pretty good for the Miami Dolphins. I know sack numbers aren't quite there, but he's looked pretty decent. You bring in someone like Bradley Chubb, who also we'll mention is on a contract year, and the Dolphins are going to re-sign him and extend him as well from what is being reported. You free up Jalen Phillips a little bit more. I think you also bring Bradley Chubb in because you've started this season, and the only way you are going to win this division is stopping Josh Allen. And you are going to need a tandem of very good edge rushers to beat him. Now, okay, when you're making these trades, yes, maybe AFC Championship is now the bare minimum when you're bringing in big names like this, especially, you say Jalen Waddle, I think has been their best wide receiver this year. I think Tyreek Hill's been good, but he's been phenomenal. And is this a slow, it does feel like a slow movement to that, but I just think this trade screams, let's see how we feel about Josh Allen, and then this year, is he still the real deal? And then they've gone, oh yeah, he definitely is, and we're gonna have to stop him, and that's the only way to win. Another, not that this is a groundbreaking, this isn't going to send them to the AFC Championship at all, but the 49ers,
it could do it. This could be the piece.
They're trading Jeff Wilson to Miami as well. Not a trade that we're going to be covering in as much depth, unfortunately.
That was the final piece of the jigsaw there.
Oh, yes, clearly. And I mean, we can carry on talking about Miami, I suppose. Do you think obviously they're going to extend him now? What do you see for the future then for Miami, Gareth? Because like Adam said, AFC Championship, surely when you're doing these moves, is now the bare minimum for you. But clearly on this team, there is still some of them gaps. Do you think this is just do you think it's like a Rams situation? Why risk first rounders on talent, on peripheral talent, when we can go out and get true blood talent out there, and people like Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb?
I do think a bit of that, because I think obviously the Rams showed last year that if you use your picks wisely, you can in fact build a superstar team that go on and win it. But the problem is, as they've proven this year, repeating that without adding a bit of youth and a bit of energy into the squad doesn't necessarily always work. I think obviously they know that they're in a division that is borderline impossible to win because of how powerful the Bills are. But when you get to the playoffs, it's a one-on-one shootout. Like, on your day, can you beat the Bills? And they can say this season, yes. Because at the moment there's one loss on that Bills record. It was that against Miami. And now they've added Chubb to make them stronger. My concern is long-term is Tua, but for different reasons than the beginning of the season. The beginning of the season is Tua the guy. Now it's more, can Tua survive long-term in the league the way he has been in relation to some of the head injuries he's had this year? So you do wonder whether long-term they probably could have done with a bit more draft capital for if they need a quarterback of the future. If Tua doesn't pan out from a health perspective instead of from a ability perspective, which I know was the worry at the beginning of the year. But for me, it's a case of they're trying to get themselves into that playoffs, and when you're in the playoffs, it is literally.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, Gav. Another trade has just come through for a player who hasn't even played this year. Trade shocker by Ian Rappaport. The Falcons are trading wide receiver Calvin Ridley to the Jaguars. Sources say in exchange for a complex draft compensation that could be worth a maximum of a 2023 fifth rounder and a 2024 second rounder. Ridley is suspended through at least the 2022 season. Well,
that's going to make them better this year, isn't
it? In fairness, I mean, I wouldn't know because I wasn't there. I'm sure Freddie can tell us how good the Jags really were on Sunday. But
I was literally when Gareth was going to finish, I was literally saying let's flip the script and talk about Denver, because you talked about Pittsburgh feeling like a selling team. Denver feels like a selling team because of all the rumors of players going here, there, and everywhere for them. Now we will talk about Denver and I suppose Jacksonville with this a little bit, I suppose, because it's not a trade that's going to impact this year. Quite honestly, in London games, the Jacksonville Jaguars outplayed the Broncos for huge portions of the game. I don't know how much that came across on the television.
It did.
But because I spoke to people at the game when we were there, and they said on the television that the game was very different for the Giants-Packers game. And I said, well, in the stadium, this is what it was like. And we had very different views on it and how the television was presenting it to how it was in real life. In real life, Denver were not good. They did not deserve the win. Flags killed them. They could not keep their discipline on defense. And Russ did not look good. He made that bomb he threw to KJ Hamler was incredible. But all we said after he threw that bomb was, how can he make them plays? And yet the rest of the plays he has not been able to make today. He looked really poor, which is a shame because I love him.
There was one play he made where I don't know who was thrown to. At least he threw it down the middle, but there's not a player within 20 yards of anyone where the ball landed. I'm like, who was he officially aiming for here? Like, there was just no one within the field of. There was no one within that part of the field.
I mean, one thing that was being said about the Jags is they need a true number one, and Christian Kirk is not quite that. Is Calvin Ridley that? Okay, I would argue, yeah. I would argue any of the Falcons, he felt like a true one and was good enough for that true one spot. He outperformed. I know Julio was on the decline in Atlanta, but he was outperforming Julio tenfold at times in that season. I mean, if you're looking to the future and you're building, this is a really sensible trade in my book. It's just depending on what happens with Calvin Ridley moving forward, you know?
The thing is with him, because to be fair, if he hadn't have been suspended, he probably would wear an Eagles jersey this year and we wouldn't have had AJ Brown, because that was what all of the preseason was. It was Eagles are going to take Ridley. We are going to take him for probably a second, was what you were hearing a lot of. And then he was banned, and then we all now know what the rest of that is. So he is a very, very good wide receiver. It's a bit of an interesting one to make it now, when he's not allowed to play this year. It's like, we're just going to have this guy and just leave him there for a bit.
I would say the argument, it's not strange. You're paying
cheaper,
little.
isn't it?
It's cheaper. If he comes around to next off season and he's cleared, ready to go, I mean, the package could have been bigger for him, really, if anything.
But I think that my main problem with the Jags is Lawrence doesn't look like he's able to win a game. Like when the game's on the line, they've lost. Is it like 10 games in a row now within one score? And how many times is it the last possession is the Jags? Like the weekend, the last possession was the Jags. To be fair, and then every week they seem to have the last possession, and it's in Lawrence's hands. It's on him to win it, and it just doesn't happen. And that's my concern with him. It just seems to be when the pressure is on the line, he just doesn't live up.
On the flip side of this conversation, Adam, Denver feels a bit problematic here. They're trading away Chubb. Massive rumors about trading away Jerry Jeudy as well. I mean, you lose Jeudy and you lose Chubb in this. That's quite a lot of move. That's two of your big time players. I mean, you're shifting Chubb off. You're not having to pay him the big contract, which he's probably going to be the one, even though he has had an injury history. He is a top defensive end on his day, but his day just hasn't come around very often, unfortunately. Yes, they won at the weekend, but in messy fashion, in my book. Outside, I'd like to move this conversation away from just Wilson being bad, because there's more going on here. It feels like.
Yeah, I think there is. I think certainly the coaching hasn't been fantastic. I think there's been a lot of question marks over Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's been something that has been pretty fair. And I mean, you see that when he was in Green Bay, he wasn't the play caller on the offense. It was LaFleur that was doing all of that. So, I mean, that's why it is a bit difficult. I mean, the one thing that, of everything that's going on at Green Bay at the moment, that a lot of the time people are coming out and saying, who's the guy who's sort of jeering everyone up and getting everyone going? And that's something that seems to be missing. And the reason that's missing is because apparently Nathaniel Hackett was the guy who was doing that. And he was the big voice in the room that would get everyone pumped up and ready to go. And he was more of that than he was, analytical, very technical coaching and stuff like that. So I think you can't blame it all on Wilson. It's and he's come into a new team, so that's difficult as well because of that. Despite the fact that he's a top quality quarterback and has been for many years, it's still tough to come into a new place. So there's lots of things going on there. The fact that they've traded away Chubb, there's talk about Jeudy. It's not overly shocking. I mean, you've got new owners there now. You've got the guys who own Walmart, who are, used to being quite successful at what they do and don't mess about. So it wouldn't surprise me if Hackett's gone by the end of this season. It doesn't surprise me that they're sort of clearing house a little bit. They can't clear Russell Wilson just purely because there's so much money attached to him. But yeah, I think this is what you're seeing. You're seeing a team that, the rumor was that if they lost on Sunday and they went 2-6, then they were going to basically, fire sale, get rid of anyone they can and go for the future. It kind of looks like they're sort of doing that anyway, despite the fact they won. So I think that they probably see that there's problems there and it kind of needs a bit of a fresh look, and that's what they're going to do. But at the same time, Russell Wilson has not been good, and it's kind of all sort of come together as a bit of a nightmare for them. And I don't see it changing, certainly not this season anyway.
The Jags trade, actually, from the looks of it, is Jags getting Calvin Ridley. The Falcons get a 2023 fifth rounder and a conditional 2024 fourth round that could rise on these conditions. So actually, it not being a second,
that's quite cheap.
I think that's really good business by the Jags. Yeah. That's really astute. Sam, our friend from across the pond, a massive Jags fan. I will be appearing on one of her podcasts this evening. Later on, should be good fun. Was very upset with the Jacksonville Jaguars losing to the Walmart franchise, apparently, which is what Denver are known as over in the American side of the pond. And she says, yes, they lost to the Jags, but they beat the Jags, and there's no real feat there in
well, I've learned a few things from her. Apparently, the Titans are the mayonnaise franchise. Like I don't know why that is.
Presumably the owner of Mr. Hellman?
Possibly, but because she was talking about, she was making something. She said, I need to improve this person. She went, you need to tighten up. And basically means put mayonnaise in it.
Wow. Sharing things from our friends over the road there. What was I going to say? I was going to say there was a lot of chatter and a lot of rumor echoing about if the Broncos had lost that game, that within hours Hackett would have been gone. There was a lot of people saying that. In terms of people out on the block, so to speak, rumors. Gareth, I'll start with you because there was one player you said before we started kicking off here that you'd heard was on the black market. So that's Josh Allen, not of the Buffalo Bills, but Josh Allen of the Jacksonville Jaguars, edge rusher. And you said you would be very interested in the Eagles. I mean, do you see him moving from the Jags? I don't, but
I don't necessarily see him moving, mainly because of the fact that, I'll be honest, I think the fan base there might riot if he did, because they're quite a passionate fan base over there, and they literally do like him a lot. I would like to see him, I'll be honest, because I still think we would be potentially in a market for a player like that, because we were rumoured to be after Chubb, even though we'd made the Quinn trade anyway. So I don't think you can ever rule out anything with Howie Roseman. I think he's one of these people who will pull something out of the bag and didn't see that coming. So he's a player I would like to see. Do I see it happening? Do I see him moving? Both of those things, no. Personally.
The Ridley one, actually, there's more information coming through, is that it stays a 4 if Calvin Ridley is on the roster. It goes to a 3rd if Ridley reaches certain incentives, and it becomes a 2nd if the Jaguars sign Ridley to a contract extension. So, what if they re-sign him but he doesn't reach the incentives?
They do better.
Does that just skip a beat?
Sorry?
Does that just skip? Does it just go bang bang and go back up to the 2nd? Or?
It's going to be a 2nd then, isn't it?
More than likely it's going to reach.
Realistically, they're not going to trade for him now and then not. I mean, I don't know how long the contract is, but the chances are they're probably going to re-sign him. Because otherwise, why would you trade for him in the first place? So
that's per Adam Schefter. Also, as well, I guarantee you it is way warmer betting in Florida than it is in Georgia. So you'll have fun in the sun, checking out all the bets that Adam Martin puts out every weekend that you can catch, because it will win you some money for sure. Make sure you check out all the bet builders that Adam puts on. I heard a rumor that out of 8 weeks, you've had 5 weeks of winners. Is that true?
There has been that rumor put around. So it may be because it's true.
Is it true? So listen to you wins your money over 50.
He owes me for Crawley Town in a different sport. That costing me money.
Don't forget me.
The weekend.
You chose to do that, so don't come at me on that one.
To be fair, I did bet for them to lose, and they selfishly equalised, and cost me money the weekend. So I will be following Adam on the next one, but expect a return. Just saying, Adam.
This is an NFL podcast. Stop talking about that soccer stuff.
There are certain other players that are also rumoured to be traded. I mean, Adam, one of them is Kareem Hunt, who's been quite vocal about wanting to get himself out of the Cleveland Browns. Most years, it feels like him and Chubb have quite a shared-ish role, whereas this year it really feels like Chubb has gone no, I'm the guy here. And Hunt has still played well, don't get me wrong, and I think he's done well for him still. But do you think there has been a real shift there? And what teams do you think should maybe be in on Kareem?
Yeah, I think there probably has been a little bit of a shift. Like you say, it did feel a little bit even. Chubb has Chubb's been amazing this year. He's really shown how good he really is, and so you can understand why they've done what they've done. and also you can understand why the Browns might be interested in trading him, because obviously Hunt is worth something. People will want him. As for teams that, I think the rumor was there was Jacksonville was a rumor. I suppose because James Robinson is no longer there, so they need someone. But if that feels like quite a long shot, because to me, you've got ETN there. I don't quite know why you would go for. I don't know. Maybe you would go for two that were that strong, but it feels like it would be a battle for who's first. Whereas I feel like Trevor Lawrence would want it to be ETN. The Rams, obviously. Rams are always up for a trade. They're always trying to find someone. Henderson missed the game, didn't he, on Sunday? I don't know if he was ill or injured or what it was, but he missed the game. They had Rivers out there, who, to be honest, I don't really know that much about. They desperately need someone with, Cam Akers just not being involved at all now. So I think that's definitely one team. Another team was the Bills. They were talking about the Bills to be rumoured to go for Kareem Hunt. They've got Devin Singletary, but the rest of it after. I mean, they got James Cook though, who kind of, on Sunday night showed a little bit. So he's not awful, but I think if you're going, you've got a team like that, you're basically all in every year for the next few years anyway. So why not really go for it? So I think they're the three teams that are probably looking for a running back who are, capable of being a playoff. Well, not so much Jacksonville, but the others as playoff teams. So yeah, I think that's probably the three really for Hunt. But whether he goes, I don't know, because there's not long left. So.
Well, I've just been flicking through Twitter, just seeing if there's anyone out there who's got other opinions on where people may go. And I came up from a tweet, but admittedly it was 15 hours. It's 15 hours old, admittedly, but it's quite relevant. And that's a tweet from Cam Akers saying, "I miss football." So is that a bit of a silent eye putting himself out there to try and get away? Do you think there's much of a market for someone like Cam Akers, Gareth, when Kareem Hunt is?
Well, as mentioned, I thought when initially, like when you sometimes see these running backs who literally will fall out with the team they win and move on to somewhere else, and it will just click for them eventually. I consider like Fournette to be an example of that. Okay, it didn't click straight away for him at Tampa, but when it did, he became a bit of a touchdown machine for them. So you do wonder whether he ever fully recovered from that injury, because it was a horrific injury he had. The likes of the Bills, I think, would be a smart choice again, just because I say they do need a running back and they'd get him fairly cheaply. So I do think he's a player that would fit there, I think, and hopefully not just because I've got him in a fantasy league, but because I think that he's a player that probably needs a change of scenery and start again. And to go to a team like that, it's hard not to do well at a team that's that good at the moment.
One player we've not actually talked about, and to move away from what we were on, is TJ Hockenson, the tight end going from Detroit Lions to the Minnesota Vikings. A deal that, talk about losing players who are good for your team. I mean, Hockenson has not been great for the Lions this year, but arguably Lions have not been so great this year. But a real focal point for that team, considering he's a big body wide receiver, can block as well. On his day, can be one of the top tight ends in the league. I mean, I think Vikings have sort of done it because Irv Smith Jr. is going to be missing a lot of time. Would argue the Vikings don't really need receiving threats as such, given that Adam Thielen's still pretty good. Justin Jefferson's incredible. Dalvin Cook can easily catch the ball. Mattison as well. I'm not overly sure what they traded for him in the end.
I didn't see.
I think. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because of Irv Smith going out injured. I think that Smith. Yeah, I think unfortunately, a lot of people were excited about Smith when he came into the league, and it just hasn't really worked out. He seems to just pick up injuries. He's just one of them guys who does seem to pick up injuries all the time. And so I can understand why they've gone for it. I can understand why the Lions have, sort of taken it as well and taken the trade for him, because they have got some, decent draft capital out of it. I think the Lions, they're probably not quite where they hope to be at this point. I think there was a lot of optimism coming into the season. It hasn't quite worked out, especially on the defensive side. They've struggled massively with that, and I think that I personally think they were thinking they were 2 or 3 years away. Like, what they needed was the quarterback, and then they'd be set to go. And I think they could get a quarterback, but there's still so many holes on that defense that's the problem.
It turns out so the Vikings got TJ Hawkinson, a 2023 fourth round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth round pick, which I don't know whether that conditional one will move up as well. Lions get a 2023 second round pick and a 2024 third round pick. So pretty decent business there, Gav. I mean, I think that for a tight end, that's pretty decent business. I just don't know whether you should be trading too many of your stars when you.
But also within same division as well. That's just like you're literally going, I'm going to trade you, and you're going to play me twice a year. Like, I'm looking forward to you scoring a touchdown against my defense that we've just said is not great. But as you say, you mentioned about the hype at the beginning of the season. Isn't that fairly standard for any team that ends up on Hard Knocks, though? Isn't there always a bit of like, oh, this team could be better than what we think they are this year?
Yeah.
And I think there's some players that did at the beginning of the season look quite good, like Rodriguez, as his proper name. They just haven't, as a whole defensive unit, found a way to stop anyone marching down the field on them, which was evident from the first when they played us at the beginning of the season. We just carried on marching down the field, but we kept letting them do the same. But the problem is now they're not marching down the field that end anywhere near as often, and they're still letting teams go that way on them. So it's not great for them. But
they've got the Packers on Sunday, so that'll give them,
Oh, that's good. Confidence boost.
Yeah. We'll help them out.
Just to
Aaron Rodgers try and throw the ball 50 yards downfield constantly.
Right, just to wait 1 second.
Not
an interesting one. Not an interesting one. Broncos are trading for the Jets pass rusher Jacob Martin, given a fourth round pick in 2024 in exchange for 2024 fifth round pick. So not terribly interested. Sorry, Jacob Martin, you're going to get your own section on the show, unfortunately. Just quick fire on just a couple of rumors I've seen popped up. Not sure how old some of these are. And 3 NFL teams have reached out to the Jags on Josh Allen, the Chiefs, the Jets, and Dolphins. Do you think he'll go to any of them? The Dolphins, let's face it, are out of it now. Jets or Chiefs going to be in on them? Do you think? No,
I don't personally think so. I can't see him going. I think it'd be very expensive.
Second one I've just seen, this is from a while ago. Per sources, the LA Rams and Chicago Bears have made preliminary contact regarding a trade that would send running back David Montgomery to LA in return for Cam Akers and a mid-round pick. While nothing is imminent, this is a trade that could develop rapidly. True or false?
Weren't you joking about him being traded last night?
Say again.
The Rams don't want to win. They're going to go for David Montgomery. Okay, fair enough.
You were joking about him being traded last night, weren't you? I remember you literally in the group.
Yeah. I think Andrew was saying something about
it.
It's because Andrew likes him. Andrew thinks he's all right. I just, no.
And lastly, to close it out, which again involves the Rams. Apparently, the Rams have offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns per PFF.
Do they have
that got turned down.
Did they get turned down? Did it?
Yeah, wow. They offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. This was, I think, this was a few days ago. They offered that, and
really? That was reported only 5 hours ago, apparently. But that would be
okay.
That would be 2024 picks, wouldn't it? Because they haven't got a pick in 2023. I'm looking down the list just now.
Isn't it 24 and 25?
Well, yeah, it would be. Yeah,
it'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Then. Yeah. Because their first pick this year is currently the 46th pick in the second. So with the Detroit Lions,
to do that would be mental to do that.
Yeah,
because it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Because the problem is your team is getting older. You know, they're gonna have to bring in players eventually. You can't it's all well and good doing this and sort of like going out and spending big and bringing the players in, but eventually you're going to lose Aaron Donald, you're going to lose Cooper Kupp. Who else is Tyler Higbee is getting older. Matthew Stafford isn't that young.
Their own line.
Yeah, these guys are gonna get older, and when they do get older, it's just not gonna, like, who are you gonna put in? It's a weird logic. I kind of get it if you want to win now, but it's just not. It's not going to happen. I don't think
it's
they're
continually
really
doing it.
Yeah,
it's okay
exactly.
doing it for 1 year, but like it's the fact that every single year they're like, we don't want a first. Like we just can't be bothered turning up on day one.
What's worse as well is their first at the minute is the 14th pick. So at the minute the Lions would have the first and the 14th. That's not bad at all, really, is it?
No, I think they'll probably go quarterback. I think that would make sense for them. I think they probably need a quarterback and someone who can actually become the face of the franchise and really be a big quarterback. I think that's a massive thing for them. And then I think that's what they need to do.
I mean, it would be pretty fantastic to see the Philadelphia Eagles have a top 5 pick and the last pick in the draft if they won the Super Bowl. That would be a pretty epic swing, wouldn't it, there, Gareth? You'd be getting 2 premium players. Go on, you look like you're about to comment upon that.
It's just, I'll be honest, that's when there was all the rumours of Kamara going. At one point, we were apparently after him. I was like, trade Kamara, because like he's literally one of the only players that does a lot. I know Taysom Hill comes on and does what should be a throw and play, but runs it instead every time he gets it. And I don't know why teams keep falling for that still. But like, if he goes from there, I'm like, that's going to be a top 5 pick easy. But then they're on about trying to trade for a first for a 27-year-old running back. Who, my thoughts on that. They literally, running backs don't often make it past 30. So that's a lot for, bearing in mind, particularly when CMC didn't go for a first. I know he went for a second, third, and fourth. But still, if you're not getting that for a better player, the only reason why I'd potentially say, okay, Kamara's a bit more resilient, whereas CMC has a tendency to be injured every other week.
Kamara's been fairly injured the last few years. He's missed plenty of time in the last few years. On that note, the world's now gone quiet. I'm sure we're going to come off of this and there's going to be another explosion of trades. Go on quickly, Adam.
I'll just quickly say, the Packers will do nothing. We will do nothing.
No one out?
I expect nothing in, I expect nothing out, and I expect nothing to change.
See, as an Eagles fan, I'm always curious. I just sit here going, what you doing, Howie? We know there's something brewing somewhere. And if somebody trade him, I'm like, where's that trade come from? I've traded him a 4th for their starter. What? How's that happened? It's how he seems to work. He's either brilliant or horrific when he does it. But the last couple of years, I can safely say he's been fairly brilliant at it. So I expect.
I've just seen the best tweet ever. Trade targets still available for the Packers: Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and EQ St. Brown.
Come on,
just get them back. Come back.
We'll take anyone back.
On that,
we won't do anything. There's no point. There's no point us doing anything. It won't fix the holes. It's a waste of time.
I thank Tyler Brook for that tweet. On that note, thank you very much all for joining us this evening. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Gareth. Make sure you check out our podcast, like and subscribe. If you want any written NFL articles, make sure you check out Off Grid NFL, ran by our good friend Johnny. Lots of brilliant articles over there. Some trade articles as well, which I've read today. Until then, though, enjoy your week. Hopefully, we've got a fair few more hours of some good, fun trading happening. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Thank you.